Today, there are 2 million descendants of French-Canadian immigrants living in New England. These are our stories. Welcome to the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast.
Venez tous jeunes filles et garçons, je vais vous raconter l'histoire de notre immigration ici au USA, de grands aventuriers de pays étrangers.
Bonjour everyone, this is Melody with French-Canadian News. We'll start with exciting news local to New Hampshire. Franco Foods was featured on NH Chronicle recently, showcasing Franco recipes around the Francophonie, cooked up by Natalie Hirty of the Manchester Franco-American Centre, and filmed by her son Oscar. Get a behind-the-scenes look at how this mother and son create their series. Check out this segment where they bake a Taste of Canada butter tarts. Then check out the latest episode of Franco Foods, Taste of Quebec, Choux à la crème, Quebec maple fudge. Find out how to make this incredibly sweet little treat with everyone's favorite ingredient, maple syrup, by checking out the episode. In the latest issue of the American Review of Canadian Studies, Dr. Patrick Lacroix shares his research on Canadian-French mobility from the War of American Independence during the rebellions. Check out his conclusions in the prelude to the Great Hemorrhage, French Canadians in the United States, 1775 to 1840. The American Review of Canadian Studies is restricted to subscribers, but check it out if you can. Keep an eye out for a live class and Zoom class at the University of Fort Kent Acadian Archives titled Acadian History from Colonization to Reinvention. Instructed by Dr. Patrick Lacroix, Director of the Acadian Archives, this course will cover topics such as the challenges faced by French settlers in present-day Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, the relationships between Acadians and the First Nations of the Northeast, the transformation of Acadian ideology from survival to affirmation, and more. Class tuition is $25 with all of the course materials. There's a new episode of Les Aventures d'un Québécois with your host, Luc Trepanier. In this episode, capsule number 20, Luc talks about more French expressions from Quebec. Learn something new en français by checking out the episode. Check out this sweet little story about children in Caribou, Maine learning French in an after-school French immersion program. The students are learning French conversational skills and basic words, as well as French Acadian history. Moving on to podcasts, check out this episode of the AAFL FC podcast, hosted by Kathleen Stein-Smith, with guests Camden Martin and Joseph Dunn, as they discuss the importance of the French language and Francophone culture in Maine. And now on to events. On February 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time, join a Zoom book talk with author Carrie Caput about her historical fiction novel, Daughter of the King. Chat about the book and get updates about the upcoming sequel. That's all I've got for you this time. Everything I've covered today will be linked in the French Canadian Legacy Podcast episode description. Merci for listening.
This week's guest was actually a recommendation from one of our Patreon subscribers, and it's always very, very cool when we're able to get recommendations for guests, because this one was an absolute blast. Someone I was incredibly excited to have had the opportunity to interview, and that is Martin Cadotte. He is a film director. People may be super familiar with a documentary he did, Rêve de Champlain, Champlain's Dream, based on the book. It's in the English, there's an English version, which is just one kind of couple-hour documentary. But in French, the original is like a 6-episode series, and it is absolutely terrific. So it's great to talk to him. He also did a series that was super interesting called French en Amérique, in which he highlights a bunch of places in North America outside of Quebec where you can find French being spoken, and in that you can find a few in the United States, some of which might actually surprise some of the listeners of the show. He also did like a kind of like a reality show, which is super neat, called Destination Northwest. And we're going to talk about that for sure. It is a cool concept, really, really neat concept. So very, very fun chat with very well-known, super successful film director from Quebec, Martin Cadotte.
Now our fathers look at us and sigh with despair, to think that everything they love we simply do not share. But the spirit never dies, our culture will survive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive.
Special thanks to Josie Vachon for providing the music. You can find more about her at josievachon.com. This podcast was produced and edited by Mike Campbell. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at fclpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FCL Podcast for more information about the topics discussed. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this episode.